Are you ready?
Let's do it, Jay.
Okay. Yes, see, I love how you use first initials. That's so cute. So just to start us off, a conversation about careers, just to start us off a little bit, I want to know, do you ever get fatigued thinking about how many years we're expected to have a career, like in terms of societal expectations for how long we're supposed to stay here before retirement? And if you do, what does that look like for you? How do you get over and get through that?
I stay fatigued about that. I don't know if anybody else feels that way. I stay fatigued about the fact that societally we have decided that our lives center around work and we will work until we can't anymore, it feels like. And I think I deal with it in a number of ways. I think first and foremost, I spent a lot of time and still do crafting in as many ways as I can. I think a work environment and a career that obviously drains me in some ways, like careers drain everyone, but really fuels me in many, many ways. And I feel a sense of kind of a passionate relentlessness for it. And I think with that, I don't find it as daunting anymore thinking about the runway ahead and how much time there is left, almost to the point where it is truly fun, like what I get to wake up and do every day. And I think about the future iterations of what this job and this role could be in the path that I'm on, and it's exciting and it's playful and it is challenging in good ways. Sometimes it's challenging in not good ways, but ultimately I think the number one guiding thing is for me is to just continue to curate in every way that I can a position and an experience at work that does not make me feel like it is useless or does not make me feel like it is not beneficial to me and to society. Because I think when you create a space or find a space or you happen to be in a space where that is the case, it's incredibly motivating. And if you're motivated, I think I focus much less on what I will be doing 40 or 50 or goodness me 60 years from now, and more about what am I doing today, what am I doing tomorrow, what am I doing next week. And when I focus on those things, it just makes me a lot happier and more excited to think about work and to think about my future and the future of my peers and colleagues and what we're doing. And so I think when I take it away from just the, gosh, like, I'm tired, I'm going to be tired tomorrow, I'm going to be tired in 30 years, and I get more, it's just like, what a privilege it is to get to do this work and to have fun in this way and to get paid to do it. And that is, I think, the guiding tenet for me when I think about it in that way.
I love that. I love that attitude of staying in the moment as well. And if you're doing what you love and loving what you do, it makes it all the more enjoyable and just joyful. And I really like,
Agreed.
yeah, I'm like, I really need to adapt more of sometimes I'm like, I'm in the moment, but it's more of, I'm thinking about a year from now. And that's really still not in the moment. It's not, it's not eons in the future, but it's like, I could still be in today. Like I could still focus on, even with all the unknown, like I could still focus on today because there's really always something to get excited about.
Definitely. And if I could add one other thing too, I think it is that I have found myself in a position and on a trajectory that is ever changing, right? Like media and entertainment is ever changing. And so this idea of doing the same thing every single day is just not a part of my path. It just isn't. And so this concept of getting bored quickly or of thinking about the future and feeling like I'm just gonna be doing the same thing like that, I don't really have that. And I think also a tip is like your life can center around work in some ways. I think a lot of people are so averse to thinking about that, but for me it's sort of like if you pick a job that you love and that you're really all in a sort of way all consumingly passionate about it, that's fine for your life to be centered around work if that's your thing. But I think it is important to have things outside of work that fuel you and help you grow and I think challenge you in certain ways. That way it doesn't feel mundane and overly meticulous and repetitive. And when you craft that and you have a sense of variety in your life, I think it changes everything. And it's very important for sure.
Yeah. That's why I told my brother he need to start playing the trumpet again or something because
Yes.
I'm like, do something you love to do. He's getting into music production now, but the reason I asked you this question, it was inspired by him, like getting used to that adjustment of being in the being in the education system where everything was pretty expected. Like you knew you when you were going to graduate high school, pretty much. You knew when you were going to graduate college if you wanted to go to college, and if you wanted to go to grad school, you knew what to expect when you were going to get out of grad school. So and of course, whatever career you're in, you can always change your mind. But he was getting, fatigue around a few years in, like around the time you would be a graduate of a program. Like that's where fatigue starts to set in for some people.
Yeah.
And it's like, because you're used to a pattern. And it's like, that might be that might be a part of it too, that people might have to get, train themselves to be like, also, if they love it, because my brother loves his job too, like if you love it, sometimes it's just a thing of you're not really familiar with this, in, I guess, quote unquote indefinite, not really, but like system where you just have to keep going. I'm like, I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with you liking it or not in that sense. So.
That's so real too. Not to stick to this question for too long, but once you leave school, right, like a K through 12, post grad, like any sort of education, college, etc., where things are so cyclical, and actually that's not the right word, where things are different every semester, every year, every hour. Like I think about this a lot now with regards to fatigue and energy. When I was in college, every day was different. Every hour was different. I would go to work right in the morning, and then I would leave that headspace and go to class, and then I would leave that headspace and go to my dorm, and then I would leave that headspace and go to my meal, leave that headspace, go to some extracurricular, leave that headspace, go be with my friends, and it was so compartmentalized. Granted, it was this comprehensive synergetic ecosystem where things bleed through and you're seeing some people in different places, but you would leave headspaces, and I probably will never be as busy. I mean, well, maybe I will be, who knows, but I was incredibly busy in college, but it felt so different because you would leave one thing, go to another thing, leave it, like, and mentally it wasn't as taxing. Whereas now in my job, I'm still very busy, but it's like I'm in one space for hours, right? And I think that's exhausting in a different way. And when you think about your career, it's like I'm going to be in this one kind of job, this one path for years, and that sort of runway and that sort of distance feels less surmountable than when it was like, I just have to get to the end of the semester, I just have to get to the end of the day, I just have to get to the end of the year, and then you get something different. And I think we're not built that way, and we're not overly conditioned to address that change, that mental change, I think, as we make that transition either. So prepare for that, young people, because it's a different game for sure.
Oh yeah, and I could see why because I had a thing about grad school. Not I'm like extending this, but we have a few minutes.
Yeah.
I had a thing about grad school for myself personally because I was on the fence about whether I should go or not, whether it was going to be for me or not. And I was like, you know what? I think I might need to take that risk for myself and get a little bit more acclimated to life outside of school because I was homeschooled for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Still feel like sometimes, even now to this day, I still feel like sometimes I have some catching up to do with like socially anyway. And in college, similarly in college, I was very, very busy and I did what I could on the social in terms of like the social aspect, keeping up with outside activities outside of class and rehearsals and all that. So I'm just like, yeah, the world is it's a tough place and also we have to now create things for ourselves all the time. Like we're not like given a schedule that we made like months ago and are still like a lot of jobs, things will be ever changing, and it's like, oh, now I have to kind of shift, and I have a little bit more say and a little bit more control over my schedule than maybe than somebody would when they were in school. So yeah, that's just gotta watch out for that fatigue.
Yeah, just get a lot of sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep.
That's the goal. That's the plan. Well, hello. Welcome to 23, 24, 25. This is a podcast.
Hey.
Yeah. It's a podcast about being slapped in the face by not only 2023, but also for me by the complicated transition of turning 25. And I'm your host, Josca, and I've invited my friends to talk about all things life as baby adults. Today I'm joined by my friend Christine, who I met at Hillman Grad Mentorship Lab. Just like a beautiful, beautiful person to have met this year in 2023. Very, very upside. Very, very on the upside of 2023, meeting Christine and everybody else at Hillman Grad. I entered Hillman Grad as a mentee of the acting track, and Christine was, of course, in the executive track. So all about getting things made, getting things done. And I really, really appreciate the new perspective that I've received from just talking to you and honestly everybody on the executive track. And I'm just really, really grateful, even though we're not in the same place physically. I'm grateful for how we've been able to grow as friends so far. And I'm excited to see years to come is the hope, because yeah, I think you're cool. I felt your energy that first day.
Thanks. I feel the same way. And to your point, yeah, 2023 kind of slaps you in the face, but I think of the Hillman grad group as like the people that pick you up when you're like, I just got slapped in the face.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm immensely grateful for the community and for you specifically as well. I feel similarly about your energy and some of the stuff that you said that first weekend. I was like, Josca's it. It's like, yeah.
I felt the exact same about you when we were sitting at that table, on the day where we had the workshops and everything. I was just like, and what's your deal? Like, there was just something that, like, the way you carried yourself, and I was just like, I want to know more. Like, I'm like, people like, what's going on over there? I have the gift of discernment. What's going? That's what my mom is always saying. I was like, she's right though.
So funny.
Like, sometimes you could tell when somebody has that sauce, like somebody. And of course, you became a, what's the word? Like now, like in the acting track, sometimes we're like, who's gonna be the group Christine right now? Like,
oh my,
you became an example. So we
that's
love
kind. That's so kind.
Yes, I'm like, it's true though. It's true. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with our spin on MySpace top 8, which is gonna be MySpace top 5, and people keep making fun of me because I'm like, yes, okay, I was young MySpace person, but still, I knew what was up. I knew what was up for a while.
Yeah, you had Tom. Don't worry.
Right? Exactly.
Don't worry.
Exactly. So you're gonna present us with a list of 5. It could be, people, characters, things that influence your personal growth, however you want to look at it. I'm very, very open. So,
fantastic.
Yeah, 5.
Fantastic.
And when you can go ahead.
Okay, cool. I want to emphasize to the point that you made that these are in no particular order. So by no means are these the most to least influential, least to most top of none of that. I just wrote it down and we're going to do it in the order that I wrote it down in. Number 1, for my personal growth and development and just, I think, evolution as a human being, when I was 13, I became an aunt, right, to my niece, who is one of the best people in the whole world. She is now 13, and I love her so much. And I think when I became an aunt, like, she is by no means mine. Like, we spent a little bit of time, we spent a lot of time together through various points in my life because my sister lived near us. We spent some time together during the pandemic or so on and so forth. And I think being that young and becoming, like, it almost felt sibling like more so than it felt like the relationships that I have with my aunts and uncles because they're so much older than me. And I think it was this really interesting time to remind myself that, like, the world does not revolve around me. Being that young, because my sister's 9 years older, so for a bit of time I felt like an only child. And the relationship that I have with my niece is one that I cherish so, so, so dearly. And it is a reminder again, yes, the like main character energy, throw it out the window when there's a baby around you, right? And in addition to that, thinking about her, I know, thinking about her all the time and her growth and wanting to prioritize that in many ways and help her and be a resource to her and a friend and just like someone to look up to if I can be that. And I think it really recentered me in the world and helped me to realize that again, it doesn't revolve around me. There are other people here, there are younger people here, there are people that regardless of whether you want it or not are looking to you to be an example of how to walk through and run through life. And so I think that changed everything for me when I was in middle school for sure. And really grounded me in wanting to be someone who was helpful and mature and um, again could be a resource for sure. So yes, me becoming an aunt and having a niece was very, very formative. Um, Next are some dual fictional characters. Okay, number one, we're gonna use this as like strong female characters, right? But it's my excuse to get to have multiple things here. Yeah. Olivia Pope and Leslie Knope. I didn't realize they rhymed until just now as I was preparing to say it, but there we go. Okay. Olivia Pope. When I was growing up, one of my favorite shows was Scandal. One of my favorite characters was Olivia Pope. It's a messy show. It's a chaotic show. It goes deep and you know what I mean. Things change throughout, but at the end of the day, when I was watching that woman work, I was like, that is who I want to be at work and who I want to be in life. Like I want to be someone who is so put together, so efficient, so at the top of their game in every category, so looked to solve problems, so capable of solving problems, great style, like so many different things. And I was like, I want to be Olivia Pope. Like truly, I tell the story all the time. When I grew up, I wanted to be an attorney. Like that was it. Like I was a mock trial, pre-law, like LSAT kid, straight up, and everybody knew it. And I got to college, and I was like, in what world did I think I was going to be? Like, why did I think I wanted to do this? Due to no lack of ambition or ability, like trust, I can set goals and achieve them. I can study, like you know what I mean. Like it's not because I couldn't do that. It was because I was just sitting there thinking to myself, I don't want to be an attorney. I don't want to be in these learning or work environments. I don't want to work. To our point earlier about trajectories and how long careers are, I was like, this can't do it for 50 years and be happy. Probably not. Like no. And I thought to myself, why did I ever want this? And the answer was because I wanted to be Olivia Pope, right? And I loved that character. And I loved how complicated and messy yet excellent she was. And I loved the relationship, even though it was scary, like the relationship she had with her father and how he bred this idea of excellence in her and just what that character in particular in that show meant to me was incredibly formative, and it was like a guiding tenet amongst like in the fictional world for sure. And I feel that way about, I think lots of young Black women in that time feel that way, or Black women in general, right? And then the Leslie Knope of it all is that I feel like they are in so many ways like direct opposites of one another, but also so similar. And I think about scenes from Parks and Rec and Leslie as a character, as a leader, as a woman, as just like a relentless pursuer of being the best version of yourself and doing the best work you can. Right, the through line there is like there's a lot of comedy around it, and it's so funny. But at the end of the day, like that character would not stop until she got what she needed to get to do what she needed to do. And then once that happened, she was on to the next and on to the next. And there's a scene in that show that I think a lot about where she spends a whole episode trying to accomplish something from a Parks and Rec perspective. Like I think it's like she wants to get a permit for something, or she has to convince somebody to do something, and it's really hard, and it takes the whole episode for it to get done, and everyone's super excited and they're celebrating, and there's like this party on a lawn, and she was like, okay, gotta go, like we gotta go do these things. And another character goes, do you never just like sit and enjoy things? Like you're just going. And she was like, no, there's more work to be done. And I remember like videotaping that on my laptop when I was watching it and sharing it with my friends and being like, this is what you guys mean, like when you say that kind of stuff to me. And I just feel very to her energy and to her character, and sometimes to a fault. I'll be honest about that. Like it can be a weakness too. But I feel real love and passion and motivation towards and for, like, relentlessly pursuing being better and making things better for other people, and like having the ability and the stamina to do that is something that I've always prioritized. And so seeing that character in a really like just funny environment be playful and fun and joyful, but also get things done every single day in an environment that can be very distracting and challenging. And I think I drew a lot of motivation and inspiration from that character too. So number two is characters, those two specifically.
I love that.
Number three.
Probably my favorite one. I'm like, that's probably my favorite one so far, because, especially because me and comedy like this, and it just gives me so much joy to hear you be so inspired by a character from a comedy, like just as simple as that, because there are so many characters that have those like narratives and personalities that really make you go, that's how I want to be, or like that's what I look up to, that's what encourages me. Somebody the other day, sorry, I know I didn't mean to interrupt you like this, but somebody the other day asked me about being a writer and what do I write, and when I told him comedy, he was just like, that doesn't sound like something a serious writer would do. And I was just like, I'm sorry, but I didn't know what to say, because you hear about people saying stupid stuff like that. So I was just like, you hear about people saying stuff like that, but you never prepare when somebody actually says some stupid stuff like that.
No, that's a little ridiculous. I won't lie. What I would say to that, not that you want my opinion necessarily, no, my instinct about that, both as like someone who wants to be a CE and just as a human being, is that artistic mediums, no matter the genre or any other facet of how you differentiate them from each other, like art is meaningful in every way, and it is meaningful to different people in different ways. Like what is so beautiful about it is that it is so subjective, and that it is impactful, immensely so subjectively. And I think to look at something and to apply some sort of comprehensive general lens to it is limiting. Like it's just limiting. And I think you can be incredibly, like, you think about immensely popular, truly like universal comedies, TV or film, right? We're talking Friends, we're talking Family Matters, we're talking The Office, we're talking Parks and Rec, all the Community, all these different things. Like people are impacted by those things in the same ways as they are dramas, right? Or more quote unquote, I'm using air quotes here, elevated content. And I apply the same logic to people who like dismiss superhero movies or dismiss other things, dismiss adult animation, just whatever. Like at the end of the day, like art is impactful, and we have to take that very seriously, no matter what, because it's influencing people on how they carry themselves in the world. And if the way to reach people is through comedy, the way to reach people is through kids animation, the way to reach people is through elevated dramas, it really doesn't matter. What matters is that the influence that you are bestowing upon people is positive. Point blank. And we should all take that very seriously.
Exactly. Oh, I couldn't have said it better myself. Okay, you can continue.
No, wait, that's so funny. I love this. It's a back and forth. Interrupt anytime. Okay. Number three, things that were impactful as I've continued to grow. This one is Grad, but I really think that I was thinking about this, and one of the first things that came to mind was the pandemic, was COVID-19. And I think the reason for that is because pre-pandemic and just in life in general, and this is multifaceted, right? COVID, I think, impacted me and everyone else in many different ways. And I'm not negating any of those ways if I don't mention them here. But I think number one was that the way that I viewed work pre-pandemic and the way that I view work now are a little bit different. I think that I was very much one of those people who was driven and motivated to work practically all the time, as hard as possible, at all times, and was prepared to do it for a very long time. And don't get me wrong, all those things are still to an extent very true. But I remember experiencing the pandemic and being with my family and feeling just so grateful that as a society, I think we were starting to center our human connections more and prioritizing them more in our lives and just recognizing that people are going through it. And I think a lot of people wanted to center this narrative of like, we're all in the same boat. And I was like, that's literally not true. Like, we might be in the same ocean, but some people's boats are built different. Like, let's be clear about that. And and I think what was helpful for me in experiencing that and growing through it was I think I just became more self-aware about what I center in my life and what I put the most priority into. And I think I became a bit of a better friend and a better daughter and sister and niece, or sorry, aunt to my niece, and recognized that, being there for people on a personal level is just as important as being there for people on a professional work level. And to be frank, I wasn't like emotionless or apathetic or like not a good person before, right? Like I prioritized people in my life as pretty highly even then. I think I was just so concerned in my brain about who I was at work, what was next at work, where will I be in 10 years at work, work. And again, to an extent, it's still the same. However, I think that I spend a lot more time filling my life in other places and in other ways. So that's one major takeaway I think from the pandemic for me, was just recognizing that I can supplement what I do at work and what I want to be at work and who I want to be in my career with, and equally so, all of the things that I want when I'm not at the office or not at my laptop clocking hours. And I think that has changed me in many ways for the better, and it's made my life just so much more full in really, really good ways. And I think elsewhere, when I think about the pandemic, there was a lot of conversation, I think, early and throughout about, we want to get this over with so that we can get kids back in school and get people back into, I just remember, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. Like, I remember pandemic started, like, work from home, like lockdown, safer at home is my preferred language for it, in March, right, of 2020, which meant we were very close to graduations, proms, other day, you know what I mean, major milestones in young people's lives, summer vacations, and anyone's like all these different really social and fun life milestones.
Graduated at home.
What did you say? What did you?
I graduated
at home. Exactly, graduating at home and all of that. And I remember so many people were so highly prioritizing those things. Like, we need to get this over with so that so and so can go to prom. We need to get this over with so that so I can go on my vacation. We need to get this over with so that this, and this. And I just remember sitting there thinking, like, this is the perfect opportunity for us to be conditioning people of all ages to recognize that when the entire world changes, our lives should be changing too. And I just remember sitting there with priorities, and the fact that we were still, I think as a society, so concerned with things that I now determine and it's that I now qualify it, or sorry, categorize as like unimportant when you scale them against like the loss of human life. I think I came to the realization that I wanted to, in my, like, fill my life with people who felt the same way, who felt like if everything about our lives are changing because of some external or some other factor that we need to be responding to, again, to ensure that like the literal loss of human life is minimal, then that's what we need. That's what we need to do. Like, we need to change what we do on a day-to-day basis. We need to change our habits. We need to adapt and react in a way that is proactive and positive. You can't, I guess maybe you can't react in a proactive way, but that's minutia. I just remember thinking to myself, these things are no longer the priority. Like, our priority is like human safety. Our priority is global health. Our priority is ensuring as much as possible the minimization of like the loss of human life, and recognizing that I wanted to be around people that felt the same way, and I wanted to be someone who in every way, shape, or form like took that very seriously. And I think I learned a lot about how we as a society, how we in this country, you know what I mean, how we react to those sorts of things, and how certain things are politicized in ways that I didn't expect. And I think the pandemic for me, the overarching thing is that I just really, really learned more about the kind of person that I want to be, at work, at home, with my friends, and the kind of people I wanted to fill my life with. And I think that has in every way very positively shaped kind of what the future of my life will look like, for sure. And I say that carefully, knowing that the pandemic was so different for so many different people, and it was more tumultuous and more challenging. Again, the boats were built differently, and so my major takeaways was that it was a very tragic, right, experience in so many ways, and a very daunting and scary and challenging experience. But I personally feel like one of the takeaways on the other side of that is that I left with a greater left. For me, kind of going back to this sense of new normal brought to me a greater sense of self, and one that I appreciate and I'm glad to have, for sure.
Wow. That's just so, I'm a little speechless because I'm kind of surprised that I didn't think of that in terms of my own personal top five, the pandemic, because it had such a grand effect on me as well. And of course, everybody's situations was different. I love how you said that we were in different boats, maybe same ocean, but different boats, because I remember there was a big thing about a lot of people getting mad, for example, about celebrities complaining about this feels like I'm in prison in my mansion all day with my baby. And everybody's like, whoa, whoa, calm down. Gwyneth Paltrow. I don't know who it was, but like, sorry, Gwyneth, love you, but like, it was just so interesting to me. Like, it was so interesting to me how a lot was changing around me as well. In terms of, it was the beginning of a relationship for me, and also for one of my close friends. Like, we both got into a long-term relationship at the same time, and like now having to navigate being friends and balancing being in relationships was like, and then we were moving in together, and then it was like the pandemic. I'm just like, so many things that, you know, I wasn't considering back then. Started to really, I had no way to get around it. Like, I was just being berated by change and berated by things that were causing me to evaluate, and that's kind of what happened too. I kind of changed my view. And like, of course, graduating college in the pandemic, at the beginning of the pandemic, it was like I had to evaluate how I was going to show up in my community and what I wanted it to look like, because I was no longer just around people because of convenience, because we had the same classes, because we were going to the same dining halls, and everybody was displaced, and I was coming back to New York. Like, some people who I was really close to are no longer here physically in the city. Like, now how do I want to work this? How do I be intentional about how I'm showing up with friends, for friends? So that's really, really, that I really, really love listening to you talk about that one.
Thanks. That's so nice. Yeah. Next up, my parents and my sort of military kind of upbringing through them. My father was in the Army for, I believe it was 26 years. My mother was in the Army for a handful of years and then transitioned out and has worked for the federal government at every base that we've lived on since or lived near. And I be some of the greatest shapers of who I am and how I walk through the world. Their names are Janet and Jeff, double J, J squared, I fondly refer to them as. And they're very serious people in many ways. They're playful and fun and quirky too. But I think the military background definitely in so many ways shaped kind of just like my daily routines and how I approach work and how I approach life. And I think a lot about this in a number of ways. Number one, like Army values, I think are very ingrained in who I am, right? This like idea of like a pursuit of excellence, about self-sacrifice, like working very hard, and being regimented in a way where you try to get the most out of every day. You're supportive of the people around you. And I've always loved that, right? And don't get me wrong, like the military has its own problems, its own ecosystem, like all of that stuff for sure. Like I am not a member of the military. Like I can't speak to so many different things. But growing up, being in ecosystems that revolved around military life, I think just prepared me for so much. And I think military communities and bases are innately more diverse spaces usually. So for me, having been in Oklahoma for a good amount of time, that's one experience. But having lived on or right next to a military, like an army base in Oklahoma, is a little bit of a different experience with regards to like diversity, equity, and inclusion. Um, and with that, I think that I always describe this one thing as a strength of, growing up, I felt like I was so conditioned in me to be meritocratic and to assess people based on like what they bring to the table, considering, different aspects of their life, but recognizing that people can look a certain way, be of certain backgrounds, have certain faiths, what have you. At the end of the day, it's like how they treat you and how hard they work and what they bring to the table and just like how good a person they are that actually matters. And I felt like I had a real advantage growing up, feeling like I didn't have to unlearn things. I just got to exist and be the person that my parents raised me to be. And I appreciate that so much. And I think about them, and yes, they're very serious, and they're, in some ways we're regimented, in some ways we're very chill, like different things being the product of our backgrounds with regards to having grown up in near military bases. But ultimately, I think about them and I think about the fact that they've supported me through everything that I've ever experienced or wanted to do. They have built a village of friends and family that I value so much. And I think in so many ways, like everything that I am is a product of who they raised me to be. And I'm grateful to them for that. So, so, so much. So grateful.
Oh.
Double JJ square, Jan and Jeff. Love them.
I love a good J.
Love a good J. I really do. I really love a J. That's true.
That was beautiful.
Yeah. And then number 5, and this is all encompassing, but I just think about my friends in general, like my friends in general, you included, Josca, and I know that I, man, like sometimes people are like, oh, you're such a good friend. And I'm like, you're playing. Like my friends are the best people I know, some of the best people I know. And I think about the friends that I had in college and how I would do practically anything for them. And I feel like they would do practically anything for me. And I feel like I'm the fullest, best version of myself when I'm with those people or with people that I care about in that way. And having people your age that choose to be around you, that you choose to be around, that you support, that support you, that you sit and you problem solve together, you spiral together, you laugh together, you cook together, you eat together, you watch things together, you walk through life together. It doesn't matter if you're right next to each other or oceans away from one another. And I feel a sense of gratitude for them and for those people that is almost greater than any sense of gratitude I've ever felt, because of the fact that it's coincidence that we found ourselves in a place that we got to become friends, but it is by every means like a choice every single day that we make to keep each other in each other's lives. And I just, man, like the other day I said to one of my absolute best friends in the whole world, she and I were talking about how we almost met in a different way. Like we almost met at this camp instead of our first day of college. And if we had met at that camp, would we still be? Would those have been the right circumstances and the right ingredients for us to be as close as we are now? And I say to her, I was like, you know what? Like, I'd like to believe that in every universe, like in every reality, we would have like platonically fell in love with each other, like straight up, like no matter what. And I just sit and I think about that and like the active choice we make with our friends and how valuable friendships are to like this, just like to the soul. And I think the people in my life that I choose every day are some of the greatest influences in the most positive way around who I am and what I choose to do and who I choose to be. And I'm so grateful to have them. Again, you included.
Thank you. I'm like sitting here like, am I getting emotional? Oh my goodness. I love hearing about other people's friendships. Like I love talking about friendship. I love just diving into like what connects people platonically, and my goodness, it's so beautiful to I just remember like coming out of homeschool, that's something that I was just like always open arms. I was just like, okay, what connects people? Like, who's gonna be my friend? How's this gonna work out? Because I was dancing in homeschool, like I had some friends, but it wasn't like the opportunities were there like if I was in a school with hundreds of kids. So I think it's a little bit of that still in me, like excitement about hearing about people and like getting a lot of my information from TV about friendship and stuff like that, and also liking being alone sometimes and having that balance. But I just love hearing you say that in every universe, like you like to think that you all would have been falling in love platonically and just so close. And I'm really of that frame of mind as well. I'm like, with my closest friend, I'm like, this is meant to be, actually. You keep finding each other again and again. And that's just how it feels like that so viscerally in a lot of situations. And I'm like, yeah, that's just beautiful. That's just, I love it.
Yeah, it's so true. And to your point, like I think about friendship, and it's just beautiful. Like it is just not to say that it isn't hard sometimes, or they don't annoy me sometimes, or I don't annoy them sometimes. Because trust, the latter is definitely true. But it's just beautiful. Like every day, you choose those people, and they choose you, and the sense of confidence that comes with that, and the sense of self that comes with that is just something that like it's I think one of life's greatest gifts. Not to sound super meta about it, but I'm just like, yeah, like I think about that and I just feel a sense of the contentment and joy that I don't experience in other facets of life that I'm so appreciative for. So appreciative of.
That's real. Life's greatest gift. That's not an exaggeration.
Yeah, no.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to pivot us back towards careers, sadly.
Hey, jobs, work, the corporate machine. No, I'm just kidding.
Time to talk about labor.
Which we don't dream of, to be clear.
Right, which is not. You can find out all about our dreams in the All About Dreams episode.
I love the plug.
Right, the little plug. But right now we're talking about career. So I know I had to be specific. No, but
I got you.
I'm really trying to navigate what career means for me, like with the industry I chose. Like, I'm still trying to get used to like, being strong in my opinion about things and knowing how to come to an opinion about certain things. Like, I mentioned this a little bit. I'm throwing out my own Hillman Grad retreat business, but I think I mentioned this about myself when I was in the hot seat at our retreat. And I was basically like, that's something that I wish to experience some more growth behind because of my anxiety sometimes. It feels like even forming my own opinion feels like it takes a lot of work. And then I have to stand behind it and not let it falter if I'm really, really sure. I'm just like, ooh, that's scary because people like judge for no reason all the time. And like, it can be a lot, but I'm still here and I'm still kicking, and I do stand on stuff. Not to say I'm just like weak and limp legged, but limp leg. I don't know.
Limp legged. But to be clear, Jay, like I think in our professions, right, like in entertainment and media, for performers especially some of the most famous performers, right? Like it seems like society and people expect people to have opinions on everything, when in reality, so few people have the time to really understand well enough on certain topics to have an opinion on everything. And so I think we just don't have to. But there are plenty of things where people ask me my opinion and I say I'm not well versed enough on that. Here's who I would recommend you ask.
Yeah, for sure. I go through that a lot, and I do acknowledge that. It's just other times where I'm just like, ooh, this is something that is like, especially when it has something to do with like my view of like interpersonal relationships and like certain things that I would have to have like a personal guideline or a guidepost for myself. Something like, I'm still like making mistakes in this area, trying to figure it out, and yeah, like at this age, at this year, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've learned from a lot, of mistakes, and it's just like I really have to acknowledge that going into a career, whatever it looks like, it can, first of all, it can look like whatever I want it to look like. And be expansive about listening, because I used to be hard on listening to people's opinions who were like, you have to do this if you want to do that, if you want to be an actor, you have to do this, or if you want to be an actor who writes or a writer who acts, it's going to look like this. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I don't think that there's a one size fits all for how you show up as an artist, and that's your career path. So anyway,
correct.
Back to you.
Back to you in the studio. That's funny.
So my question for you is,
yes.
What inspired you to pursue work in your current role and field? You kind of mentioned it already. You mentioned a little bit of a transition from like Olivia to now.
Correct.
But yeah, what advice would you give someone in their 20s who's feeling lost about their choice for career?
Yeah. First part of the question is, like I said, I wanted to be Olivia Pope. Why did I ever think I wanted to be Olivia Pope? Because I loved the way she carried herself. I loved what she stood for, what that team stood for. And I've always wanted to find some way, in my own way, to be, a positive influence on the world, right? To make a positive change in the world. It was very macro. I had really micro approaches to it in local ways, but that's what I wanted. I wanted to like be a positive impact on the people around me and to make the world a better place if I could. And I had to grapple with the fact that I did not want to be an attorney, didn't want to work in corporate law, didn't want to work in policy, didn't want to, work in political crisis management. I was just like, those things were not for me. And I thought to myself, why did I ever want them? Because I wanted to be like her. Great. So I was so influenced by a television show. For so many years of my life, it was a guiding tenet in who I wanted to be. Several other characters on several other shows as well. But TV and film were for me some of the greatest influences on the trajectory of my life up until that point. And so I realized, thankfully so, okay, like media and entertainment, they are one of the greatest vehicles by which to positively shape society. Like meeting people in their homes and teaching them in subtle ways and overt ways, right? What does it look like? Almost answering the question of like, what does society look like? What could society look like? What has society looked like in the past? And in answering those questions, creating narratives and, representing narratives and projecting narratives that hopefully help us to be a bit kinder to one another and more understanding of one another and more excited to get to know one another and to support one another, strangers, best friends, family, what have you, to tackle difficult conversations in a healthy and positive way, to address topics that you haven't before, to differently address topics that you've maybe poorly addressed before, and to just grow, right? And I thought about how exciting and fun it could be to figure out how to work at a company in a place that is doing that. It's making TV shows, it's making movies. And I found myself really eager and excited to do that. It's a long story short. I started, to a previous point, like really relentlessly pursuing finding a way to be in this industry and in the way that I find myself most akin to my strengths, right? Which I'm not by any trade like a writer, and by no trade an actor. What I really do love though is bridging the gap between purely artistic, to an extent, mediums, people who perform or write or what have you, bridging them with people who pay for shows to get made or put shows on air or what have you. And so really it's just, for me, wanting to be a CE stems from the fact that I wanted to be someone who could bring people together and could help to put really great, I think positively impactful in many different ways, entertaining content into audiences and viewers' hands, into their homes, on screen at theaters, so on and so forth, and really act as a facilitator of communication between two different ends of the spectrum, business and creative. And that motivates me. And it took me a second to figure that out. And so to your question about like what advice would I give to 20-year-olds or people in their 20s or young people or people any age who just feel lost, is that like sometimes a real part of the journey is being lost. And I used to think I still do to an extent. I used to be so envious of the kids who knew they wanted to be professional athletes or knew they wanted to be doctors or lawyers or pharmacists or dentists or corporate attorneys or people who work on Wall Street. Like the kids who were truly on the path that they felt in their bones that they were meant to be on, and they could spend so many of their waking hours pursuing that and felt like they were on a path. I just remember comparing myself to them and thinking, and to be clear, like I was by no means unsuccessful. Like I was doing my own thing and like was doing it very well, but just feeling like they knew exactly what they wanted. And I joke with my friends all the time. I'm like, if I had a thing and that thing was clear as day to me, guys, the game would be over. Like it would be over yesterday. It would have been over yesterday. Like me with a singular goal to laser focus on, it's a different thing. Like it is a different thing. And I think I found myself so worried about not having that, like not knowing the exact thing that I want, right? And having lots of different things that I really enjoy and spaces and all of that. And I've seen it to an extent sometimes as like a weakness, when in reality, like not being certain can also be a gift. And that it allows you to experience lots of different things and to really shape your life around a world that is ever changing, right? As discussed. And I love that. And so to the people who feel lost, like you're not always going to feel lost. You will feel lost, then not feel lost, then feel lost again. Like it is a long journey. And that's me as someone who is still in my 20s. Like I feel like I've learned that and come to terms with that. And I think every day, every year, every experience, it brings something new and helps you to curate the life that you want. But I think at some point you just have to rest and recognize that your journey, no matter what, even if you knew exactly what you wanted, is not going to look like the person that you're trying to compare your life to. It's just not. And that is a good thing because what you don't know about that person's life is what is most challenging to them or what they're dealing with when they're dealing with it privately. And what you can really take comfort in is the fact that the journey that you are on and the place that you are going is yours. Like it is yours. It belongs to you. You own it. And the more work that you put in to enjoy it while you have it, because I think it's really easy to think that you just want to get to the next thing, the last thing, the best thing, when the thing that you have right now is great too. And the moments where I've felt that and really taken that to heart, even if it's in a period where I feel lost, has been a real gift to me in recognizing that I might not be in the exact place that I want to be right now, but the place that I am in is still valuable and can still be fun and can still be helpful. And I think that you find things that supplement your life and that are helpful in your life in some of the most unexpected ways, and you have to be open to that. Like you can't just be sitting in sadness because something doesn't look the way you want it to look. Like you have to make the most of everything when you can. And so that's my advice, is to really recognize that every situation you are in can be an opportunity if you let it, if you make it be one. And understanding that, yeah, some people might have it all figured out or might seem like they have it all figured out, but they probably don't. It will probably change. Yeah. And that's just the reality of the situation. And sometimes you have to sit in your reality and make the best of it. And that is something that I have learned and am still learning every single day, for sure.
Wow, I really needed to hear that today. I'm not even gonna. I was like, wow, I really needed to hear that today. And it's because, I mean, like you said, like we're feeling lost is necessary. And that's so true because you also get to explore. It kind of creates a need sometimes to like try to like open yourself up and consume more. And like you figure out by consuming more, listening to other people and getting inspired and all of that. And I'm just like, yeah, wow. Being lost is so necessary.
Yeah.
Getting to those moments you were talking about where it's just like there's opportunity here and it's your choice to take it or not, like to do something with it or not. And that's a big one because some people like, and sometimes we do let things go by because sometimes things are confusing and we're not looking at things the way that they could be like in a way that they can be used in I'm trying to say something and it's not coming out, but
that's okay.
But like looking at things in a way where we could use it to some sort of benefit or advantage to whatever our goal is. And I'm just like, yeah, that's okay. Not everything has to be like, okay, how can I make this thing this? But it's just like, yes, there is opportunity there, and it's cool that it's available. Like it's just cool that to know that it's okay to be lost, and as a matter of fact, it should be a given that it should be expected that this is probably where you're going to be, especially at this age and at this time.
Yeah, for sure. In some ways, yeah, for sure.
I'm there. And my next question for you is, in what ways do you seek opportunities for growth and learning within your professional discipline?
Yes. So recently, my algorithms across social media have been like throwing a lot of athlete content my way, right? Like a lot of like Kobe, a lot of Michael, a ton of that narrative of like greatness takes everything. Take every opportunity. Work, just like these athletic mindsets have been just like thrown in front of me. I feel like probably because I searched something at one point, and I think a lot about what my approach to work, and I draw a lot of inspiration from professional athletes or from people who have that idea of like relentless effort, relentless growth, like being forever learners, like always evolving. And when I think about opportunities at work, some of it is like never letting a set given opportunity pass you by if you're in a position where you feel like you can really, positively pursue it. I'm not saying like if you're in the depths of fatigue and you're overwhelmed at work to like go do these things necessarily, no. But when you feel like you can confidently and materially pursue an opportunity that is presented to you, I'm talking about mentorship programs, I'm talking about lunch and learns, I'm talking about shadowing visits to set, all sorts of very defined opportunities that are put in front of you, whether you're at a company or in another space, and pursue those for sure, relentlessly. All of them. Take advantage of everything that is handed to you or given to you or put in front of you. Where I think some of the most strategic people find themselves really leveling up and getting ahead and performing in a way that is so beneficial to their professional development and growth. And for me, I've always tried to be like innovative and really think outside the box when it comes to those sorts of opportunities, and strategic about it as well. And I think there are a number of different ways you have to be strategic. Number one, you have to be strategic with your time, because, and by that I mean number one that comes to mind. I haven't prioritized them yet, but you have to be strategic with your time, and you have to recognize that when it comes to opportunities, those are things that supplement your day-to-day job. Because at the end of the day, like the thing you have to do best is the thing you're getting paid to do. And then from there, it is, what is the next job that I want? And how do I get to that? What is the job I want 10 jobs from now? And is the thing that I'm doing helping me to get to that? And this is the part of the podcast where we're going to get really like, oh, wow, Christina's like so goal written down, or like, whoa. Maybe some people give that feedback, but it just, as always, it's always come so naturally to me. And so it doesn't feel daunting. It doesn't feel strange. It doesn't feel like a lot when I talk about it in my own brain. But I think I'm constantly thinking about, what's the job I have right now? How do I achieve excellence in that position? What's the job that I want next? How do I supplement what I'm doing in my current role to help me learn about what I need to be and what I need to have to be excellent at the next one? What do I think I want longest term, knowing that that could change, right? Again, ever evolving, ever changing landscape. And how do I, in ways that I can, craft an experience, build my own sense of self, and allow me to have the skills and the traits and the experiences that kind of guide me towards that. And you have to really want certain things. And so when I think about how do people pursue opportunities, or what opportunities should they pursue, is, for me, it's a number of things. It's looking at other people in the environment that I'm in the ecosystem that I'm in, the industry, that have careers or carry themselves in ways that I would like to, right? Or have careers that I would like to maybe have one day. And again, I'm not overly rigid about it, because a lot of times people will be like, oh, you want to be the next this person, you want to be the next your boss. And I'm like, sure. But for me, it's like, yes, and like, I want to have the ingredients of this person mixed with the ingredients of this person mixed with just who I am as an individual doing these sorts of jobs. And so it's assessing, what are some of the traits and experiences of the people that you most find that you resonate with, right? So I think about my boss, think about other bosses, other execs across the industry, and I'm like, okay, what about them do I think most highly of? Where do I think they gained that skill or that trait? Or, okay, it seems like a lot of the people that have this job also had these jobs. Like, do I want any of those jobs? And always say yes to conversations. Always ask people to have conversations. Like, one of the biggest opportunities is just sitting down and talking with people about their lives and about their careers, and do that as often as you can, because you'll learn something. Even if the person's role is wholly irrelevant to a job that you want, they know people with the jobs that you want. They're working with people that have the jobs that you want. And hearing about how they interact with those people or how those people interact with them, so formative and material to your growth, for sure. And I think about recognizing that you might not get every defined opportunity that's put in front of you. You might not get into the mentorship program. You might not get into the lab. You might not get into the writers program. You might not get into the early career development. You just might not. And how do you put yourself in a position where even if you don't get A or B or C or D, like E through J are still things that you have crafted and you have created to put yourself and to get yourself ahead. And so it isn't just the thing that you're putting on your resume. It is because of the Instagram algorithm putting all the sports reference to me. It's like, what are you doing in the off season? Like, what are you doing when no one is watching you do the thing that is helping you to learn? So no matter what industry you are in, like, you can be a student of that industry, right? So for me, that is things like making sure that when I don't have to watch something for work, what am I watching, right? That doesn't mean that I don't watch stuff for fun, but a lot of the time it is like, what do I think is most beneficial for me to watch, read, do to help me with the job that I'm in right now, the job that I want next, and the job that I want most, and really crafting an experience that allows you to do that.
Yeah. Oh, you're dropping some good ones here.
That's funny.
When you said sitting down talking about careers, I was like, sounds familiar.
True.
No, but that is just so, like, your mindset about it all is just so crucial. I feel like it's not even like what you're saying. Like, I get it. I get the people who have the feedback, who say, so goal oriented and all this. It's true. But also, I can see what you mean about how it's not daunting for you because it's just like kind of like how you think about it. I feel like I feel that way about some other things for myself too, in terms of like, oh, this is just kind of how I feel like it is. Like, one thing moves to the next if I'm like operating with these things in mind. Like, I don't know how to explain that more clear. I'm trying to think of an example, but really it's not as relevant as just talking about how like the like nobody's forcing you to be at whatever career you're choosing to be. Like, you're making the choice to be there. You can change it if you want to. So if you have a goal to get somewhere else, like, what are you doing to keep being engaged, to keep like leveling up and like communicating and learning from the people around you? So yeah, I'm like, see what they're saying, but it makes sense to just be like, this is how it is, and this is um how I get filled in this environment and get like move up and like greater my understanding about all of this. So yeah, I'm just like that. Yeah, these tidbits, I'm sitting here like, keep that in mind. Just remember, sometimes I'm doing things and I don't realize it until after the fact that I just did that. And I'm just like, wow, that was really helpful. And I wasn't even thinking about it in terms of, I'm going to do this because I know it's going to help myself out. And I feel like it's that too. Like, we don't always think about it like that. We're just doing things because we're called to, or we're like, it's an instinct to be like, oh, this is where I want to put my energy into right now. And so yeah, so about that, right?
Okay.
So about this entertainment industry, it's unpredictable.
That's what they say. Sure
Right.
is. Sure is.
Unpredictable, fast-paced, risky, all the things. So I want to know if you can share a story about how you've adapted to any unexpected challenges or opportunities in your role.
Yeah. I mean, look, people always, I think we socially and casually talk about, oh, not our generation just living through another historical event. And how often that has happened for us. And I think what first comes to mind is the pandemic and is COVID, right? I was graduating the PAGE program in late June, early July of 2020. So we were just a few months into it, still in the thick of it, sincerely. And what was that going to look like? What was getting, my first full-time role post-PAGE program going to look like? And I remember just like one day, like just being like sad, just so sad about having spent a year preparing for one sort of job search and then being thrusted into a completely different type of job search that was, in many ways not going to utilize the same relationships I'd built, the same skills, the same strategies. And I was just mad and sad about it. And then I think I found myself pretty quickly after adapting and reminding myself of that idea of like, sometimes you just have to sit with your reality and work through it because what you wanted is not what you have, and what you have is what you have to get through. And I think that I use that approach for just about everything at work when it comes to like adaptation or like adapting and working through things. And in the job that I have right now, like everything is ever changing, and every single day looks different. And I use a lot of skills that I gained in other places, and a lot of just personality traits that I have. But when it comes to adapting, when it comes to reacting to things, for me, it is understanding that life not very often looks like what you think it's going to look like. Like I found myself trying to predict things and being like, that was stupid. Like what a waste of energy and time trying to think about how this was going to be, because it just isn't that. It might be close to it, but it just isn't that. And sometimes in really great ways, and sometimes in bummer ways, and whatever. Like it's all its own thing. And I think the number one piece of advice I would give is that you just have I said this already. Like you really have to figure out how to untether yourself from your expectations and sometimes your hopes, and just exist in what is real and get through what is real, and discern between like what you want that you can get, what you want that you can't get right now, what you actually need, and what you have, and like assessing all of those things, and finding the combination that is most beneficial to where you are today, where you want to be next, and where you want to be most. Like I think I'll probably keep using that reference point, but that language. And then there's this really great, at least great for me when I think about it, like quote from The Bear, season 1, and I can't quote it directly, but I can give it like situationally or generally, where Carmi is like, there's a fire burning in the kitchen. There's a fire in the kitchen. And you sit and you look at it and you're just like, there's so much going on. This thing is on fire. And for however long, you're just like basking in it. And you're like, for a minute, you just think to yourself, like, what if I let it burn everything to the ground? Like, what if I just let it burn? And maybe part of that feels good or exciting or helpful. And you sit with that for a second, and then you put the fire out. Mm-hmm. And I remember hearing, and then you put the fire out, and I was like, that is a guiding tenet for me. The job that I have right now that has truly everything, every single day, so many like metaphorical fires, or the stage in life that we're in right now, where like every few months there's a metaphorical fire. Sometimes there's a literal fire. You know what I mean? Like, I just sit and I think about that quote of, sometimes you sit with it, you assess it, you think about the worst case scenario or the best case scenario of it burning everything to the ground, and then you put the fire out. And I think that is really important for me, and maybe it's helpful to other people, to think about the fact that you can't just bask in something, sit with it, and then deal with it. Like, then become more action oriented and then deal. And yeah, I literally have the quote printed and like on my desk next to me, ... and then you put the fire out. And yeah, it's helpful to me every day.
Wow. I like having a quote in front of me every day. Like, I like the idea of that. Not that I have it, but you just saying it just now was me saying, okay, that's something that I have to do.
Nice.
I have to find my guiding tenet and put it out and put it in front of me like that because, yeah, but that's a good one. That is a good one. It reminds me of when I was a kid. My little brother used to have this thing where if he would spill something, like, or like make a mess of some sort, like he would just sit there and look at it for a second before moving to do anything about it. We would be looking at him staring at the thing like, are you gonna move? Like, are you
what are you doing?
But now I think about it like, wow, I wonder what was going through his head in those moments of just like, this is what happened, like kind of like soaking it in a way where I really just did that, or something really just happened and I'm taking it all in. And like, it's easier to clean something up truly once you've taken it all in anyway. I'm like,
especially metaphorically. Like sometimes the water spills, you got to get the paper towel. Like my parents used to yell at me and say the same thing. They'd be like, "Why are you just looking at the milk that you just spilled all over the table?" But sometimes you have to really know what the problem is before you can solve it.
Right.
And that's just point blank.
Exactly. And I think for him at that young of an age, because he was like really little, maybe he didn't know what the problem was at first. Like maybe he didn't see a problem with there being spilled ice cream on the floor at first. And he really had to like register that that's not good. I don't know. But metaphorically, it definitely makes a lot more sense. And yeah, now I'm just like, oh, another thing. Gonna get my quote, gonna do my thing.
Hey, I love that.
Inspired by Christine. Love it.
Thank you. Inspiration. That's for Jason. That's this guy. Inspiration, Jason. That's his role. Don't tell him I'm in his lane.
There's room for many. Okay, so you have some questions.
Yeah.
Little shared hosting.
Yeah.
What do you mean you've been listening this whole time and you haven't subscribed yet? I don't see what the holdup is. The button is right there. And while you're at it, follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You obviously like the show.
I love. Number one, Jay, okay? In your professional life, and because this is about careers, we can save other stuff for when we're just hanging out, but in your professional life specifically, right? Like, who are some of the people that have most informed, shaped, impacted, positively, negatively, or otherwise, your trajectory, and why and how? I'm curious.
Oh my goodness, there are a few. I can think of 3 that I might want to talk about here. So I'm going to start with Jennifer Lewis.
Okay.
I read her, well, I've always loved Jennifer Lewis, Mother of Black Hollywood. That's also the title of her autobiography that I really took my time reading because I wanted to savor the mess out of that. I really wanted to savor that. It was just so, like, it was so inspiring to, like, hear the context of what struggles for an actor look like back then too, when she was coming up, especially in the theater scene, and trying to, like, she was really involved in a lot of beginning workshops for a lot of shows. So like that kind of like the confidence she had, and then when it was just kind of like broken down and how she had to really keep herself up. I mean, it was so inspiring. She's also very, very hilarious. And I just always, I feel like a lot of my examples are going to have people who I see to be as very confident, because that's something that I really, really admire. I often had a kind of like throughout my years, kind of had a hard time balancing like, oh, what is being too prideful look like? What is being too prideful versus being just like confident in who you are and what you can do? And I think Jennifer Lewis is a really great example about someone who's very talented. I mean, like acting, singing, dancing. Like her comedy is so specific. Like it's just her. Like it's really just Jennifer Lewis. There's nobody who's like her, who has that. I don't think, like, sometimes I imitate her because like it's so specific. Like if I did like an impression of her, like my dad would bust out laughing because it's just like, you love doing Jennifer Lewis. I'm just like, she's so funny. But anyway, like she's so uniquely her, and that's something that I really, really love. I love not having to to do much. I'm not saying that I'm lazy in that sense,
Right.
but I love not having to like force a personality or like in like a creativity or what have you. In my performance, I was really inspired by getting at what other people noticed about me, and I talk about that a lot in my writing, like kind of like coming to terms with the dichotomy of what I see myself as versus what people have told me, like,
Yes.
oh, you seem like this type of person or that. And I'm just like, it's interesting when we get to the points where those don't intersect. So, so
100%.
that's
How do you deal? Yeah.
yeah. So that's like, it's really a lot of like reflection that I do when that happens. I'm like, because I go kind of all over the place with like, how are people seeing that in me? Like, how are people, when somebody said one time that I was intimidating, I was like, me, for real.
Bro, people throw that out so loosely. I'm like, here's the deal. Next time, just be like, am I intimidating or are you intimidated?
Right.
I'm confused.
Yeah. Right. I think that's just a you thing.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I was like, I used to attribute that to like physical traits because it was usually before people got to know me. And of course, I'm pretty tall. I'm pretty, I have good posture from dance, like from dance for all those years. And like, I've even had people comment on that before and been like, wow, you hold your head up so high naturally, or you blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, yeah, but I can see where people's opinions kind of form sometimes and why mine would be different, because to me those don't correlate. Like that has nothing to do with how I present, like how I show up. And I mean, it can aid in, like, I can use it to my advantage. Like I can hold on to it in certain settings, but I'm getting besides the point. Jennifer Lewis.
No, I got you. We're here for all of it.
Yeah, but
edit and post if you want to change any of it.
True, we love a good edit and post. But yeah, Jennifer Lewis, she also, I get emotional at the random times, but like I can keep it together. Jennifer Lewis went through so much that I didn't realize, like before reading her autobiography, and it really also inspired me to put more of that vulnerability into my own work as an artist. Like, even if I'm, even not just as a tool for writing, but oftentimes as an actor, I have to tap into certain emotions that I felt in the past, or certain experiences that led me to feel certain things so that I can portray whatever character or whatever circumstance that I'm portraying. And so hearing her talk about some of the things that happened to her, like she talked about this one instance where she kind of talked herself out of being sexually assaulted. Well, it kind of went a little far, but she stopped like any intercourse from happening by like the story, like, and just like I was just so like taken aback by how brave she was in this moment, and how not only just brave, but she was able to rely on her creativity actually in that moment of intense, like in the intense unknown and fear and like and danger. Like she was in danger. So I think just her telling her story just like really inspired me to be like, whether it's in acting or in writing, and not that I have to tell people things that I'm not comfortable sharing, but I can myself tap into it and be inspired by it as I like present myself as a performer or as a writer. And yeah, wow, just everything about her, like her ambition, the just the scope of what she's done, and the pathways that she branched out towards, besides like just acting and like directing. And so she's a big one. Jennifer Lewis is probably gonna be. She's on my list to like play like a grandma or mom. I'm like, she could play my like. It doesn't have to be grandma. She could play grandma. Like, come on.
I'm so glad you have her to look up to and to reference. in your career and in your life. I think that's incredible.
She's a great one. I feel like everybody that I'm about to say, it's probably somebody that I read their autobiography.
Okay.
I just love.
Yeah, give me the next two. What do we got?
I just love a good autobiography because when I get obsessed and inspired by someone, I just want to know how they got to where they are. I'm a wild girl. Like, why this? Why, or how this? You know? So another one would be Trevor Noah.
Okay. Born a Crime. Good book.
Yeah, Born a Crime. You already know. Had to read that. Did you read that?
I actually haven't. I just know I haven't read it all the way through yet.
I do recommend that one, especially because it's really actually amazing how his comedic tone comes out in the autobiography as well, or the memoir as well. So Trevor Noah, I guess I was just very interested in. I'm not South African or anything, or even someone who's lived outside of this country for an extended period of time besides studying abroad. But I was just really interested in the parallels of always like having to find a way. As someone growing up with not much, but like having a lot of family around me, I kind of conditioned myself to like find a way. If I wanted something, I was going to find a way. And I have that mindset right now as well in a lot of respects. Like, that might be something that friends might describe when they describe me. They're like, oh, you're always like figuring it out. You know, you want to do something and someone might see an obstacle and you figure it out. And I'm just like, it's because I'm of the understanding that anything is possible. And just because I might have been put in a situation or put in a place without me having anything to do with that, like I didn't put myself here, but these are the circumstances and I have to kind of claw my way out. Just because there are perceived barriers, that doesn't mean that there's not the destination on the other side. And that also doesn't mean that I have to like break my way through all these barriers. There might be a way to walk around some of them that people aren't always like thinking of. And I think as an actor, that's something that's huge because there are so many barriers, quote unquote. And I noticed that when just like reading Trevor Noah's book, watching The Daily Show, or just like listening. I also watched that documentary that he has on Hulu. I think it was made in like 2011 about his early stand-up days and like when he first came to California to do a stand-up and like his first time in the States and how he was received and like his experience going through it. And I was just like, this is so cool to see. Like, this is so cool that he documented this because it's just like his experience was so I don't even know like what word I could use to describe it, like just from reading it. He's also another person who of course went through a lot and had a certain perception of himself and got to see it shift so much. Like got to not only see it but be the direct cause of the shift.
Yeah.
I'm going to find a way and I'm going to do this for myself. And when certain things didn't work out, it's just like, okay, how do we pivot? Or when certain things started to get out of hand, because that's another thing, because it feels like things are working out. Like you're in a situation, like when he was in another like field of business, when he was selling or he was DJing and he was like just like selling stolen things on the streets or whatever. When he was in another business that was actually lucrative and like he was figuring it out, it's just like, okay, but maybe this is not where I want to be, even though it's working, like it's supporting me. I can finally eat McDonald's. he's like, okay, now I get to reevaluate because I do feel like I'm meant for more than this. And that was powerful too, because sometimes I could, even me, I'm like, I could get comfortable. Like I could get comfortable in certain spaces, but I'm like, is that really where I want to be? Like, what about this comfort is worth just giving up where I know, where I feel that destiny, where I feel that purpose, where I feel so driven to. So he was really inspiring in that respect. And of course, he's funny. So that's that's gonna be another.
Of course,
thing.
he's funny. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, I think very highly of Trevor Noah and how he carries himself and how he speaks of the women in his life, specifically the Black women, and how he centers them in his success as having attributed to his success. And to your point, like making something out of what others would deem to be nothing. It is very inspiring and motivational. And so I feel similarly, and I'm glad that you mentioned him for sure. Yeah.
I mean, he's
okay. Sorry.
I said he's a good one.
He's a good one. Okay. Number 3, last up. Who do we got?
Who was I about to say? I was going in between a few. I'm gonna go with Issa Rae.
Okay.
Just because she was a direct inspiration for me, being like, okay, I'm gonna do a web series. I'm gonna do a web series because that just sounds like a way I can get to it. And not that I was doing it for people to be like, I wanna sell it to a TV. I really the series that I started working on, I really had no plans of seeing it because it was so based off of the current moment that I was in my life. I even said it's just going to be a character named Josca. Like, I didn't even give myself a different name. I mean, Issa did the same thing, but like in this case, I wasn't thinking about this as something to like expand upon. I just wanted to do something to be as creative as I could be, and I wrote 6 scripts, like almost manically. I was like, and then of course I got in over my head and had to scale back, but I wrote like this wacky storyline of like how I feel in my head sometimes, like in New York, and just having that question of and it was earlier on in the pandemic, so the question was really, should I stay here in New York and try to figure this out when so many things are so up in the air, or should I really actually give myself the rest that I have a right to and go back home to Georgia? So that was basically what it's about. And it was exploring like mental health, like my mental health through a comedic lens, and giving light to the fact that we need to take a break when we experience burnout.
100%, absolutely.
Yeah, and like sometimes it's also like we don't know what's gonna happen next a lot of the times, and I just have to keep remembering that. Like I just have to remind myself that it's okay to not stress out about it. Like it's okay to take a step back and actually rest.
Correct.
It
is perfectly okay to deal with stress before you experience stress.
Right. Not to say don't stress, but like in terms of when you can see it coming or when you get to it, like it's okay to be like, there's nothing that I can really do to control what's going on except for like take a step back, like let it. Some things you just gotta let flow through you, and that I'm okay with that. And and Issa Rae is also really a big inspiration nowadays to me because of just everything that comes out about what she's doing. I'm just like with the American Black Film Festival and wine company. I'm just like, this is exactly kind of what I want to happen with me. Like I want to be led towards opportunities that feel very in line. Like it doesn't matter to me if every single thing I'm doing is not like actually writing or acting, if it's in line with what my passion is, with what my purpose is for myself. And I just like when, like, you can tell when people are doing something because they really want to be doing it, or they're really called to do it, or they're like, oh, like, that's the perfect person to be doing this. And yeah, so that's just like really inspiring to me. And I love listening to her like in interviews and talk on panels. And for real, I only really watched the Project Greenlight reboot because of her. Because I got you.
Yes. Look, if you haven't seen, I cut you off. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you haven't seen her acceptance speech, I think it's for women in film. I'll send it to you after this. But it is like one of the, I think she does a really great job across the board of utilizing a comedic lens, like utilizing a comedic vehicle to really drive a very material and real point home. And in this speech, she basically is like, as women, I think we're so often called to, and we put a pressure on ourselves to like shine a light on others and to be accommodating of others and to help other people become the best versions of themselves. But as I accept this award, like, and these are my words, like, and how I experience this speech, but like, as I accept this award, it's just gonna be about me. Like the speech is just gonna be about me, and I'm just gonna do it for real, like the way that we really need to do it. And she basically like goes into this. It's not exact. Maybe it's spoken word. It's not exactly spoken word, but it is just like one of the funniest and best speeches I've ever seen. And if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. I'll send it to you, regardless.
Please send it to me. I can't remember if I seen that one or not, but I would love to.
Okay. Jennifer Lewis, Trevor Noah, Issa Rae, thank you for your impact on Josca, because we all in her village and community benefit from it. Okay, next up, this is a question that I have found myself being asked to answer in a specific way all the time, and I'm gonna rework it a little bit and ask you. It has to do with work-life balance, and people always ask me, how do you achieve work-life balance? And I take that question in the sense of like, I don't know if I believe in it. So I'm curious, do you believe in work-life balance? If so, how do you work towards it? And if not, why not?
Okay, here's the thing. I've been noticing a lot especially after the pandemic did something to my view of work in relation to my whole life as well. Because I used to be that person who's like, I never want to live to work. I'm working to live, and that's it. But I got to this point recently where I was like, it's okay to call the thing that I'm really passionate about work. Like to me, in my head before, it was like work is like this monotonous, like draining thing all the time, and sometimes your work is your life. We were kind of talking about this earlier a little bit. Like sometimes your work is your life. Now the balance that I feel is there. Like I would say that I do believe in work-life balance, but the balance and what's quote unquote the difference and what's gonna be like what I view as life is just self-care. Because I take my self-care very seriously, and I separated a lot from my art or my work. Now, sometimes I rely on creativity for self-care. That's not to say that I'm not doing any of that. But sometimes I'm just like, okay, I need to have one day where I'm not going to log into my email. I'm not going to do anything that has to do with getting some that feels productive. That's basically it. I don't want to be productive on that day that I choose. Like I'm gonna take a bath. I might do some like physical activity, like stretching. I love taking me a good walk. Taking me a good walk and listening to a podcast.
That would change your life. It change your life. Walks especially are so good for you.
Yes, and when that sun hits, especially early in the morning, I'm like, when that sun hits, it feels like that's just needed. That's like fuel. That it is fuel. It's like, I don't know. I could go on and on about taking walks, but
no, I love it. This is all good.
But yeah, I do think that my work though is pretty much a 24/7 thing. I'm flowing through it all the time at many moments. It just doesn't feel like it's a bad thing because I'm not doing anything because I need money. Some people are doing things, of course, it makes sense though, because we have to have an income. But for people who are currently like not loving what they're doing and they're doing it for the monetary stability or financial stability, whatever way, I can see where you really have to set yourself up for that balance for sure. Because it's just like that takes a lot out of you. But yeah, I do what I can and taking that rest. Mostly what the balance is going to be is like spending quality time with friends, and like doing those things I was talking about, taking walks, taking baths, and really sleeping. I'm gonna sleep. I think I'm gonna sleep.
Sleep. We all need more of it. I don't know a single person who needs less of it in my life right now. Yeah, sleep. Everyone prioritize it. It's so beneficial to your health and your happiness. So go to bed right now after you listen to this podcast. Take a nap.
Go take a nap. I could really use
listeners. Go take a nap.
Sleep. So naps are always encouraged. Listeners, you heard Christine. Like I'm all for that. I'm backing you up right there. Please take a nap. And I think I work. Sometimes I'm too hard on myself. I feel, and I'm just like I could have rested, and I just been shameless again. I don't know. Like something might have taken me, and I'm just really. Why am I forcing myself to be awake? I'm not missing anything. Of course, there are those moments, but some moments I really just put everything to the side, take a break from social media, take a break from looking at a screen. And also, it doesn't even have to be an actual nap. You could just sit there and look at the ceiling. I know some people might be like, that's boring, but you'd be surprised how much is going on around you that you might not be privy to or paying attention to. And this was a big exercise that we did in acting school where we literally just had to sit there and listen a lot of the time.
Wow.
Sat there and listened and heard sounds around us and just like paying attention to what we just put to the back of our mind and what's not at the forefront, like the sounds of somebody knocking on something outside, or the sounds of the wind whistling, the sounds of cars honking here and there, that at a certain point you might just shuffle back to the back of your head. And I just remember, like, a lot of the times putting on my headphones and not playing any music while I was walking through New York City, just so people would not bother me and think I was listening to something. But I also just really was taking in the music of nature. And I think just like finding stillness and experiencing that is just like, that's something that I just like put into my self-care routine because it's really necessary. Nice. And there was this person who worked in soundscapes, like sound for television.
Okay.
Listening to talk about the fact that somebody asked her if she saw the world or heard the world first. Like, what was her first kind of instinct?
Oh, yeah.
Receiving, like, information. And she said she, very big auditory person. And the fact that she's always hearing things and paying attention to the sounds that things make. Like this chair I'm sitting in right now is squeaking now and then, and I'm like, I've been noticing that, and yeah, I can go off on the little things, but honestly, that's what acting school has done to me. Like just very, very small things having a very large impact on me, and just taking a second to slow down. I think that's how I work towards it, just making myself slow down and taking a breath. Nothing wrong with a little breath or two.
Nothing wrong with the breathing exercise, to be clear. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's beautiful, Josca. Sincerely, I think taking the time to perceive life in a real way, and really understanding your surroundings in a way that grounds you is very relaxing, and it's very filling, and it can be very rejuvenating. And I don't do it enough, so I commend that you make time and make space for it. That's great.
Yeah, it's
last question from Christine. Oh yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think it's the Zoom audio. It's the Zoom audio on me. Sorry, I cut you off. My last question is: I think we all experience doubt. I think specifically with regards to our careers, as we discussed, you can feel lost. You can feel like you're being pulled in a different direction, like you're pushing yourself in the wrong direction. I'm curious, what's a recent example of you having felt doubt in your professional career, and how did you work through it, or how are you working through it if you're still experiencing it?
Yes, I just think the biggest example would be starting my own production company to do things like this podcast and other pursuits that I'm working towards doing, I had big doubts about that because of course you want to talk to your friends and people about like, oh, what do you think about me doing this? Or do you think that that sounds good? Or do you think people might get excited about that? Those questions you might have. And of course I got a lot of feedback that was just like, that sounds really cool. You should totally do that. With the podcast specifically, I was nervous because podcasts, there's so many podcasts out there and it's just like, who's going to listen? Who's really going to listen? But then I had to remember, you always have to go back to your why and your why now. And I had to remember what that was for me to propel me forward. Because it doesn't matter if there are a million things out there remotely similar, quote, like if in your view, if it's similar to what you do. And in my opinion, like things that even sound similar are going to feel really different. So even if you feel like there's a million things that are so similar to what you might be doing, I would say just like keep investigating it. If you have to tweak it because it's too much like such and such, tweak it. Like play around with it, like explore, experiment. Follow that instinct though. Follow the natural instinct that's coming up. And I think I just had to keep following my natural instinct with this. I really was going back and forth about the podcast. Like, should I start it? Should I do it as a video component? Should I do it? It was a lot of doubt about what format it was going to look like. As my vision kept growing, I also had a little fear come up about, oh, am I going to have the resources to do this? Are people going to want to participate in something like this? Is it, I don't know, are people even feeling like this is something that they want, like they're comfortable with? Just a whole bunch of different questions. And one of the things that I always prioritize is everyone's comfortability, because it's always me not wanting to put someone else in a situation that I wouldn't want to be in. And I'm all about embracing discomfort, but not embracing when you feel unsafe. So that was something that was coming up a lot. I was just like, I hope whoever like is going to be, whoever I have the honor of speaking with as I continue to curate this journey, really, like I can really create an air of comfortability where they can tell me if something's not gonna fly and we have to change something. Because I was just like, that's totally me. I'm totally open to crafting things, and also, I mean, that's just been kind of, I'm a very collaborative person anyway.
Yes.
So you'll see me have a vision and I'm gonna stand by, okay, certain things have to be in line with a vision. But within a vision, I feel like if you have a good vision, then there are a whole bunch of different ways that you can come and make it successful. So I'm not tied to like, I have to ask this question. And they're just like the making of a good vision is just knowing that you can expand and you can like bring anybody in to come and just really flow and thrive in it. So yeah, that's something that I had to come back to when I was experiencing some doubt with this. And also a lot of the doubt was me not knowing like what it takes to have a business. And I was just, oh, will this be so like complicated and hard and like too much of a learning curve and too overwhelming? And I'm like, people do it, I can do it. I can do so many things, and I just have to take it one step at a time. Literally right back to what I was talking about with trying to be in the moment a little bit more instead of always trying to look and see where I'll be a year from today or 2 years, which is helpful, but it's not the only perspective that I should be having.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was just taking a risk, I think, with my goal of having a production company. And like now I'm working on a short film that I came up with a story for, and me and a producer that I met are really working hard on this to get this to life, and it's something that I really wanted to do too. Honestly, a little selfishly, because I haven't had the privilege of performing in a while, and it was really starting to get to me. So I was like, all these auditions and all these unexpected things that came up where I couldn't show up in the way that I wanted to, especially in my personal life, because sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a break because things with my personal life, family, what have you, might get very, very up to a point where I'm just like, my head's not going to be in it right now. And it's okay to be honest about that, because the career will always be here. So it's okay.
Hopefully the career, yes.
Right. So I'm like, it's okay to be honest about that and be like, okay, just step back. Just take a step back real quick. But yeah, sometimes those doubts come up too about taking a step back. But it's important to always have a reminder. Always have a reminder to cycle back on. And that's why when you mentioned having that printed out on your desk about and then put the fire out, made me think that it's really important to have stuff like that visually that you can look at. And really do that more, because reminders are helpful. Sometimes you're not going to automatically remember when you're in that moment to calm yourself down with whatever specific reminder that could be useful. So yeah, now I'm sitting here like, I'm going to print out some of those reminders that what is really driving me towards this purpose? Why am I so confident? Like, this instinct is real. This instinct means that something achievable is on the other side. I'm doing money fingers. It's not about money, but something achievable is on the other side. And for me, it's really all about joy.
Yes.
I really, really want to feel uninterrupted happiness. Like, I want to feel it wash over me like I just can't explain. And I want other people to feel that way too, as we're working together, as, you know, they consume whatever it is of my work that they're consuming. And that's just kind of like the goal. There are too many challenges in this world that I feel like, a lot of them I feel like we've created, and it's pretty unnecessary. And I want to be on the other side of that. Yeah, I'm like, I want to be on the other side of that.
Yeah.
So when doubts come up, I really have to have something like a reminder, really at the ready, so that I can be encouraged to just keep moving forward and not give up.
Yeah, totally. I think doubt is so interesting, and sometimes doubt is welcome, because when you work through doubt, you feel more convicted on the other side to pursue the thing that you've wanted always. And so much of what you just said resonated. I think this idea of like sitting with your natural instinct and utilizing your natural instinct as a guiding tenet to pursuing what you want to pursue is so important. I think the distinction between feeling uncomfortable and feeling unsafe is very real, and we don't talk enough about it. And it's funny, I think about doubt a lot in a new way now, because there's this trainer at my gym who says, "No doubt, please, that just makes everything harder." And I just think that doubt is such an interesting thing, and I see it in some ways as useful, and I see it in some ways as a detractor from our goals. And I really appreciate, I think, how you just iterated, how you work through it, how you identify it, how you discern whether you want to sit with it or not. I think it's so helpful and important. So yeah, Josca, thank you for answering my questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you for asking such great questions.
Hey.
And right now, I feel, especially your specific questions, I feel like it's a great time for me to work through those type of things. Especially at the start of a new venture, it's like, oh, a career is also something you can create for yourself. And you hear about it, you do see it, but it's like you don't always know the inner workings of that. And that comes with a lot of doubt, and that also comes with a lot of work-life balance, and really, really being specific about who inspires you and who's affecting your trajectory. So I'm like, all those questions are helpful to me right now. So yes,
good.
Thank you for joining me. I mean, this is,
of course,
just I was so excited for this conversation today, and I'm sitting here like, I knew this was a good idea. Like, I can't think of anything else, but that's just what's going through my head. Like, I knew this was a good idea because I feel so, like, like, nourished. What's the word? Like, when your thirst quenched, okay? Like, that's what I like.
I'm glad to help if I can in any way. That's great.
So to kind of fade out of the conversation of careers and
take that hat off.
Right, take that hat off to get some work-life balance in there. We're gonna play a little game, I guess, a little activity.
A little activity.
To close, which is the old TV Big Three. And are you into astrology at all? I'm not.
Here's the deal.
Astrology people, but
yes and no. Honestly, the Hillman people got me into like, yeah, what's your sun, your rising, I'm like, I don't know what those things mean, but Gemini, Leo. To the listeners out there, typically the response is like, no way, that's so much. It's a lot. That's a lot. And I'm like, I don't know what it means, but okay.
I think people will always say,
yeah, totally.
I've never heard someone say what their astrological signs are and someone not say, oh my goodness, like oh my god, what chaos. I'm just like, you're gonna say that for every single
person. No, totally. So the through line is it entertains me and it makes it so playful and I find a lot of joy in it. And sometimes I am like, oh, not me getting read for filth by the paper's astrology section. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So I have no issues with astrology.
Yeah. I retweet at Read for Filth by the
Read for Filth by the back of the Essence magazine that I get every month. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's a good subscription to have.
Yeah. Shout out to Janet Moraine, 1/2 of double J squared.
Yes. Okay. Love that. Okay, so for this game, activity, you're to take a TV show that you really, really either grew up on or really loved, and you're gonna use the characters to make up your big three. So, like, for my example of that, so Raven, it would be like, oh, I'm a Raven Baxter son, a Chelsea Moon, and a Corey Baxter rising. That's just how. Yeah, that's not my specific. That's not what specifically I would choose for That's So Raven, but it's an example.
Cool. So what you? Okay, so let me caveat, however you want to pronounce it, this by saying, I don't really know what the sun, moon, right? I don't know what those things mean. I think the sun is like maybe the most dominant, most prominent one, the one people reference the most. So I'm gonna say these characters. I don't know if the category I'm putting them in is actually the appropriate category, but the three are these three.
I can show a little bit if you want to, or you can tell me, and then I can be like, that might be the rising, or that might.
Okay, cool. Let's do that. Yeah. I would say, so the show, let's set the scene. And I thought about this a lot. I was sort of like, am I picking a favorite? I was like, let me just pick a show that has like characters that I can try to pull from, that's nostalgic and all this stuff. The show is Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide.
Yes, of course.
Of course. It's the early aughts. You've just gotten home from college soccer practice. You have your peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You're watching Ned Mosby. Is that his name? Ned Mosby? Ned? I don't know his name. Ned something. I don't know. Really just trudge through middle school. Trudge with the sound effects of like, I don't know, like a comic book, like just all over the place. It's such a stimulating show visually and audio wise.
Very camp.
Very camp. So camp. But I would have to say, and this is what's tricky, is I don't know, and let's move off of this together. I don't know which of the three characters I'm about to say are like my most prominent, who I am in certain aspects of life and who I am in other aspects of life, but the three characters are Ned, just because of like main character energy. Like I feel like in my own brain, I boast so much main character energy. Like I'm like, let me write a guide so that everybody can know how to walk through that. Like, you know what I mean? And like, I would be like,
I would follow.
That's funny. Or like just wanting to be, pretty A-okay with just about everybody and friends with, a lot of different types of people, and have people that I'm really close with that are, with me for the long haul. So Ned is one. Next is Jennifer Moseley. I think growing up, I was very athletic. I had lots of different types of friends. I had a lot of male friends for sure. And I was just I think very grounded in some ways about what I wanted. And I was very competitive. And so I think about her in that sense of how she was an athlete and very, very good athlete, and how competitive she was. There's that. And then number 3, honestly, just to be frank, dude, just to be frank, is Claire Sawyer, future lawyer. Let me tell you that I wanted nothing more than people were oh yeah, Christine reminds me of Claire Sawyer, future lawyer. I wanted a briefcase. I wanted to walk around with cards. I wanted to be a lawyer so badly, and I thought that character was so fun and so random, and so there's definitely some energy of having something that you wanted as an adult and just emulating it in your life as a kid. Was very, very my energy for sure. So Ned, Mose, Claire Sawyer, future lawyer. It might even, and honestly, it might even be that order.
I think that might be the order.
I think, yeah, it might, because I think Ned was very guiding in the sense of, yeah, I definitely wanted, and still in my own life, am the main character. I have people in my life that I'm closest to, right? Cookie and Mose, and I talk to and I'm friends with lots of different types of people. It doesn't mean I'm best friends with all of them, and it doesn't mean I don't experience embarrassing stuff like that. It definitely did, or stuff like that. So there's that. Yeah, I feel good about that. I guess it's a Ned sun, a Mose moon, and a Claire rising. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say that sounds right, or just switching Claire Sawyer, future lawyer, and Mose. But I think order is probably, your instinct is correct. I love that Claire Sawyer, future lawyer. That's a good character choice.
Yes, give her the credit she deserves. Okay, put her in the limelight, because she used to pop up, Claire Sawyer, future lawyer, and Ned would be like, "Not now, Claire," and I'd be like, "But you're gonna want her on retainer in 20 years, okay?"
Right. All right, better keep up that connection. Love that. Nasty Classified is actually one of the tonal comps for the comedy pilot that I've been working on.
Oh, nice. Let me read it.
I'll send it to you, because that's so funny. I wish that I could, something about writing to me that's tough is getting that wackiness to live off the page, because it's going to come out in sound effects. It's going to come out in the zooming of the camera, or the camera and scene composition and things like that. But Nasty Classified was such a big inspiration for me, and just a really, really fun show that I loved watching growing up, because of how wacky it was. And they weren't afraid. I listened to their podcast, actually, the Ned's Declassified pod. Something that they talk about often are bad visual effects, but they mention how it's pretty much purposeful to be that bad, because it was back in the day, but they didn't have the worst visual effects at their disposal back in the day. But the reason why it looked like this was because you're seeing this show from the perspective of this middle school kid who is just
all over the place,
all over the place, trying to figure out his space in the world and teaching others as he goes along. What more could you ask for? It literally looks like you're looking at this world through their eyes. And I really appreciated that. I was just, and I was around that age. I mean, I was a little younger than them, but I was just I was around that age to feel very similarly with how I just my imagination was running wild. Yeah, I love that. And I think you picked fabulous character choices.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. Oh my gosh,
this was fun. I just thank you so much for coming, talking with me, and
of course, I said, Jay, I would do just about anything for you. So
no, that made me melt. I'm just that's what friends are for.
I love it. Band practice.
So I wish we could like continue this conversation for hours, but now I'm sitting here like on my to-do list, schedule with Christine next time we can like just chat and have,
just jibber jabber.
Literally just jibber jabber.
Yes.
I would love that. So thank you again for being here.
Of course.
I'm going to close us out. Everybody's just like hearing the sadness in my voice. It's sad to end these,
but hey, we're friends for a minute. Don't worry. We can chit chat anytime.
A long time and a good time.
Correct.
So before I actually officially close out, when I was looking through the forms that I had all the guests fill out and like the pictures you said, I said, oh, you sent the picture of us. That's definitely getting posted. That's definitely.
Yeah, better. What the heck? It better.
I said, this is perfect. But anyway, the viewers, the listeners will see what I mean. It's just, this has just been such an honor, and it just feels so good to be in fellowship with friends in this way. So yes, thank you. And thank you to everyone for watching. This has been 232425. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in next week as we talk all about decision making. Oh my goodness. Tough choices. So I'm going to say this a lot, but it's true. Y'all are not going to want to miss that one. Thank you so much, Christine. Just such a beautiful voice. And now I'm about to go and start typing up these affirmations and these reminders to put. So get ready for that. All right, y'all. See y'all next time. Bye.
Bye.
232425 is a podcast produced and hosted by Josca. Graphic design by Josca. Executive producer, director of photography, and editor, Dante Charles Critchlow. Music by Fadal Moore. A special thanks to Anthony and Celintia Moore, Constance Moore, and Harold Hickson for their contributions to production. And a special thanks to viewers like you who create the community of my wildest dreams. Thank you.
232425 TV.